welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. I'm super excited about these meals and I'm really excited to share them with you. I think it will give you a little bit of some meal inspiration for this upcoming week. I did want to mention I post one of these videos every single Sunday, so if you are new here, I would love to have you over here at my channel, so go ahead and subscribe down below the video so you don't miss next week's What's for Dinner. Anyways, let's get cooking. To get this week started, we made these really good bacon chicken ranch wraps. I hardly ever make wraps, but I decided to make them on this night. So I'm just pouring in my olive oil to my pan, and then I'm adding my chicken breast. All I did to season these chicken breasts were, use a little paprika, salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder. So you're just gonna wanna cook these all the way through, and then you're gonna wanna chop up about 6 pieces of bacon, and then you're gonna wanna chop up your chicken into small pieces. I like to use the Costco brand of bacon if you guys don't know that yet. To assemble my chicken wrap, I just warmed up a big burrito-style tortilla on the stove, and then I'm adding some freshly shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and then of course you can't have a chicken wrap without iceberg lettuce, so I just got a little bit of iceberg lettuce, and then some Roma tomatoes, along with my bacon and chicken, of course, and then you guys already know I use the Bolthouse ranch type of ranch. This chicken wrap was so good, and it was really simple. I was pretty impressed. For this night's dinner, we made an easy white chicken lasagna with spinach. So to begin this recipe, I am just cooking up my lasagna noodles. I like to break my lasagna noodles in half when I'm using only an 8x8 baking dish other than a 9x13 baking dish. To begin on the sauce for this Alfredo, I just melted down about a tablespoon of butter, and then I'm squeezing in 5 garlic cloves once that butter is melted. Then you're going to be adding in 3 tablespoons of some all-purpose flour, and then you're just going to whisk that all together just so that it gets incorporated with that butter and it becomes a little bit thicker, just like this. Now I'm going to be adding in my 3rd cup of heavy cream along with my 2 cups of whole milk. Once you've whisked your flour in with your milks, you're just going to be adding in your 4 ounces of softened cream cheese along with your 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and you're just going to whisk it all together. I also added a little bit of black pepper just for some extra flavor. And then you're going to be adding in your spinach. This is just about 4 cups of spinach I'm adding. This step is totally optional. If you don't like spinach, you just don't have to add it. Once your spinach was wilted down and you brought your sauce up to a slow simmer, you're just going to turn the heat on low so it keeps warm. You're going to start on your cheese mixture now. So I'm just adding in a 3/4 cup of some cottage cheese. The original recipe calls for ricotta. I just did not have any ricotta on hand. And then I'm just cracking in 1 egg with that and then combining it with my fork. Now to begin assembling this lasagna, you're just going to first put a scoop of that yummy Alfredo sauce along with the lasagna noodles and then some of your shredded chicken. I did not show you guys the chicken part, but I just boiled up a chicken breast and then shredded it up. It was the equivalent to 2 cups of chicken, just to let you guys know. You could also use a rotisserie style chicken if you have that on hand. Anyways, I am just putting that Alfredo mixture and then that cottage cheese mixture, a little bit of fresh Parmesan cheese along with a little bit of fresh mozzarella and then the chicken, you know, just throw it all together. Here it is out of the oven. This was super good, and I do recommend this recipe. If I were to do it again, I would just use ricotta cheese instead of the cottage cheese, and then I would only add 1 cup of milk instead of the 2 cups of milk, just because this was a little bit more saucy than I really like it to be, but this was still super good. Alright, to all my meatless meal friends out there, this recipe is for you. We are making sun-dried tomato white bean soup, and this one was really good. So I'm just starting out by dicing up 1 white onion into small pieces, and then I'm slicing up my carrots. This is the equivalent to 2 cups of carrots. Over to my saucepan, I just poured in a tablespoon of some olive oil, and then I'm just dumping in my onions along with my carrots. You're just going to want to saute these together until those carrots get nice and tender. Once my carrots were tender, I am just going to be squeezing in my 5 cloves of garlic, and then I'm going to be pouring in my 2 15-ounce cans of Great Northern beans. These are drained and rinsed beans. Now I'm adding in my 4 cups of chicken broth. You could also use vegetable broth if that's what you have on hand. And then I'm pouring in my 15-ounce can of fire roasted tomatoes, as well as my 4 ounces of sun-dried tomatoes. I did chop these sun-dried tomatoes up very finely. Now we're going to be adding in our tablespoon of freshly diced up basil. You could also use rosemary if you prefer the taste of rosemary. I just let this come up to a simmer and then plopped the lid on, and I let this simmer on a low temperature for about 20 minutes just so all the flavors infuse together. Here is everything all cooked through and finished. I just paired this dinner along with a side salad. You could also pair it along with a grilled cheese. That would be delicious. Here is my soup. I just sprinkled it with, of course, a little bit of parsley and some Parmesan cheese because I love my cheese. This meal was so good, and I definitely did not miss the meat. If anybody wants to make something fun or creative, this recipe is definitely for you. We're making Navajo tacos. To begin, we're going to start on the fry bread first. So all it is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. So I just whisked that all together in my little glass bowl right here. Once you are through incorporating all of the dry ingredients together, you're just going to pull out 1 cup of water and you're just going to warm it up a little bit. And now I'm just gradually adding that water into my dry ingredients. And then you're going to want to use this hand motion and whisk all of that together and kind of incorporate it just like that with your hand. I know it's a little bit weird, but this is what the recipe said to do, and it came out great. This should be about the consistency you want your dough to be. It should look like a firm ball just like that, but everything is held together. So I just put my little rag over it just like that and set it aside for about 20 minutes. While I set that aside, I just started on my ground beef mixture. I just have a pound of lean ground beef. I added about a half a teaspoon of some taco seasoning along with a little bit of salt and pepper. And you're just gonna break that up and let it come to a brown and cook it all the way through. Once the meat was totally cooked through and then I drained out all of the grease, I just added in about 2 teaspoons of taco seasoning along with my water, and then I'm adding in 2 cans of drained and rinsed pinto beans. I just stirred it together and let it come up to a simmer, and then I kept it on a low temperature just so all the flavors infused together. Now it is time to move back over to our fry bread, so I'm just going to pull it out of that glass bowl in small amounts. And then I'm just putting it on a floured surface. I'm just using my large cutting board for that. And then you're just going to roll it out to the best of your ability. And then you're going to slit a hole in the center of it. The reason you're going to slit that hole in the center is just so it doesn't bubble up into one huge bubble when it is frying. Now over to my saucepan. I have about a cup of some canola oil. I already have it heated up. So I just have my fry bread right here. I'm just pulling it just like that so it gets a little bit thinner, almost like you're making a pizza actually. And then once it is thin, just like that, you're just going to plop it onto that oil and you're going to just cook it on each side until it browns just like that. And then you're going to flip it over, do the same thing. And then once they were cooked, I just put them on a paper towel just to drain the grease. And I just did it over and over again. Here are my fry breads all through cooking and crispy and delicious. So this recipe made about 4 to 5 fry breads, and then here's the beefy bean mixture, so good. And then I also just shredded up a little bit of sharp cheddar cheese, and then for on top I just have some white onion that I diced up along with some tomatoes and some iceberg lettuce. This was so good, and if you've never had a Navajo taco, I really suggest these. They will really impress you. For this night's dinner, we're making green chili chicken enchilada soup in the Instant Pot. So here are all the ingredients you guys are going to need to get this recipe started. You could also do this in your crock pot as well. Just adjust the cooking times. To begin, I'm just putting a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast in my Instant Pot, along with 4 ounces of chopped green chili, and then 1 diced white onion. And then this recipe also calls for a red bell pepper. I just didn't have any red bell pepper on hand. Now we just added in 15 ounces of chicken broth. For the beans, I'm adding in 2 cans of drained and rinsed black beans and then 1 can of cannellini beans. And then I'm just adding in my 1 10-ounce can of enchilada sauce along with a little bit of salt and pepper. And then for the seasonings, I'm just adding in 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and a little bit more salt and pepper to taste. This goes on high pressure for about 15 minutes. Once everything was done cooking, I just shredded up my chicken breast with my electric mixer right here, but you could use 2 forks to shred it up just as well. Over to my 4 ounces of some cream cheese, I just added in a scoop of that soup, and then I'm just combining it together. The reason you're doing this is just so that it doesn't curdle when you're adding it into the soup. So over to my soup, here's what it looks like all finished. I just added in back that chicken that we shredded up along with that cream cheese mixture, and I mixed it all together, and then I let that warm up in my Instant Pot for about 10 minutes. Here is my bowl of soup all plated up and finished. This was so good. Even my baby enjoyed it. I just topped mine with some cheddar cheese, sliced avocado, and a little bit of some iceberg lettuce as well as tomatoes. This was really delicious. For this dinner, we made some baked cracked out chicken breasts. So to begin, I'm just putting 4 pieces of bacon onto my skillet right here, and I'm just cooking that totally through. Once that bacon was finished cooking, I just set it aside on a separate plate right here just to drain the grease. And then over to that same pan that I was using to cook the bacon, I left the grease on that pan to cook these chicken breasts. So I just put my 2 big chicken breasts on there, and then I just seasoned it with some salt, pepper, and some paprika, as well as some garlic powder. And then I just cooked that totally through. For the cream cheese filling on top, I have 4 ounces of cream cheese right here, and then I'm putting about a teaspoon of this ranch seasoning mix on top, and then I just mix that all together to combine. Over to my 8x8 baking dish, I'm just spooning out that cream cheese and ranch mixture and trying to put it on my chicken breast as even as possible. Obviously, my cream cheese was not as, melted as it should have been, but oh well. On top of that cream cheese mixture, I'm just putting a little bit of that bacon along with some sharp cheddar cheese and then more of that bacon. And then if you have fresh chives, you're going to want to put fresh chives on top. I just didn't have any fresh chives, so I just used dry chives. And then you're just going to stick it in the oven for about 400 degrees for a few minutes just to make sure it gets melted, because that chicken is already cooked through. So you really just want the cheese melted and everything to be ooey and gooey and delicious. Here is my plate all plated up. This was so good. The only thing I would change is I'd probably add a half a teaspoon of the ranch seasoning mix next time. That was a little bit overpowering, but this was still delicious. For this night's dinner, we're making sweet and sour chicken over a bed of white rice. To begin this recipe, we're going to start on the sauce first. So I'm just adding in a half a cup of apple cider vinegar along with a 1/4 cup of ketchup, and then about 3/4 cup of some granulated sugar. And then you're going to be adding in 2 tablespoons of some soy sauce. For the seasonings, I'm just using about a half a teaspoon of some of this garlic salt and then a half a teaspoon of some onion powder. I just mixed everything together to get it well combined, and then I just made a cornstarch slurry. And what that cornstarch slurry is 2 tablespoons of cold water along with 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and then I just poured it in there with my sauce and I mixed it together, and that cornstarch is supposed to help it thicken up. Over to the chicken, I have 2 large boneless, skinless chicken breasts I cut into 1/2-inch pieces, and I just stuck them in this large gallon-size bag. And in that gallon-size bag, I'm just pouring in about 1/3 cup of cornstarch, and you're just going to mix it all together and shake it until everything is coated in that cornstarch. Over to my oiled saucepan, I'm just using 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You could use any type of oil you prefer. And then I'm just pouring in that cornstarch and chicken mixture, and you're just going to cook that chicken all the way through. I thought maybe one of you guys would be interested in seeing how I make my white rice, so I just poured 2 cups of white rice that I rinsed in my Instant Pot along with 2.5 cups of water. Then I just pressed the rice button for 15 minutes. While that rice was cooking, back over to that chicken. So once it was cooking for about 5 minutes, I added my sliced white onion. I sliced it like this because that's how restaurants cut their onion for sweet and sour chicken. You could also be adding in a bell pepper too at this point. So once the onion is a little bit cooked in for about 2 minutes, I just added in our sauce that we previously made, and then I stirred that all together and got everything well coated. Here is my rice all cooked through. It comes out perfect every single time. I love it. And then here is my plate all plated up. My husband absolutely loved this meal. I thought it was missing something. So instead of adding 3/4 cup sugar next time, I think I'd add 1/4 cup of sugar next time. And then I'd also add some pineapple chunks. I think this would make it perfect. And just like that, that wraps up today's What's for Dinner. I hope you guys all enjoyed it and got a little bit of some meal inspiration for this upcoming week. I do post one of these videos every single Sunday, so if you are new here, I would love to have you. So go ahead and subscribe down below the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.